As the title says, this video covers 7 secrets about attracting women that society won't tell you and certainly didn't tell me. The media's dating advice has proved itself to be pure BS that had me friendzoned more than I care to admit, and lonely, miserable, lost without hope. Here are 7 secrets they don't want you to know. Number 1. You'll have more success with women if you appeal to their emotions rather than their logical minds. The guys I coach always want to know the amazing magic words that will make women fall in love with them, but you know what? There are no amazing magic words. What you really want to have is an amazing magic vibe, and by that I mean being happy, confident, self-assured, and set on your own path in life. 2 guys can say exactly the same words to exactly the same women only 24 hours apart and get completely different reactions based on the emotional states they're in when they speak to them. People say that 93% of communication is non-verbal, and that's especially true when speaking to women. Yes, having funny lines is nice, but if you don't have confident energy underpinning them, then those lines are basically useless. Also, being confident within yourself will free up your brain to create the witty phrases that you think will help you to seduce women. The whole point of those lines is to act as a mask that gives the impression that you're a confident and self-assured person. So why use the mask when you can just cultivate the mindset? So what I'm getting at here is that if you're with a woman who you want to like you, don't focus on what you're saying. Focus on who you're being. Generate a happy, positive, and assertive energy about yourself and see what happens for you. Now, before I get started, let me say that women 1000% have logical brains that are just as capable of analysing situations as ours. I can't tell you how many women I've worked with over the years, but I can tell you that every single one of them was just as capable as any man. However, the truth is that women like to give their logical brains a rest when they're dealing with men they're attracted to. They want to feel a huge range of emotions that captivate and enthrall them, and it's just that simple. By the way, this is part of why women become addicted to painful relationships with men who aren't right for them. The strong emotions these relationships provide are exciting and somewhat addictive. Anyway, the point I'm making is that most guys expect women to logically decide to be with them. They expect women to say,
"Yeah, I've crunched the numbers and the math checks out. You make $100,000 per year, have a luxury 5-bedroom apartment, and a beautiful Ferrari car. I like, love, and respect all of the above, and am now prepared to be your loyal girlfriend moving forward and use your penis as a cream-filled lollipop whenever required."
But when it comes to their relationships, women aren't motivated by logic. Sure, they might actively want a guy with money and resources, but if that guy isn't interesting at the same time, then she won't feel anything for him. If you want a woman to realise how much you love her and actively want to be in a relationship with you, then spiking her emotions will be infinitely better than appealing to her logical mind. She needs you to give her a good time. She doesn't need your resume. Number 2, women want a man who's better than them. Have you ever noticed how women go for guys who are older or make more money? And have you also noticed how if a woman ends up making more money than her boyfriend or husband, say if he loses his job, something like that, it can often spell the slow downfall of their relationship? Well, as Jordan Peterson said, humans, like other primates, orient themselves into hierarchies with the most competent at the top and the least competent at the bottom. What women basically do is go for men who are either level with them in the hierarchy or above them, and it's something every man simply needs to know. We mate across and down the hierarchy, and they mate across and up. You will never see a romance novel that's been written for women by women where the heroine falls in love with a man who's beneath her socially. But you will see tons of stories where some average woman falls in love with a billionaire, 50 Shades of Grey, or a warlord, the Golden Dynasty. On a side note, let me just say that Hollywood romantic movies don't count because they're usually the fantasies of the beta males who wrote them. But now, back to the post. This means that if a woman is with a man who somehow falls beneath her in the social hierarchy, she'll slowly start to lose attraction for him, and there's nothing even she can do about that. Part of her attraction to him was whatever it was that gave him his social position, and when that goes away, so will her desire. Sure, she can choose to stay with him despite her dwindled attraction, as many women do, but she can't make herself feel the way she used to. But just so you don't think I'm attacking women here, just know that this is basically the female equivalent of a man losing interest because his wife put on 65 pounds of whale blubber. Men are primarily attracted to looks that signify a healthy body that can bear healthy children, and women are primarily attracted to signs of confidence and societal influence. When either men or women begin to see the absence of what they're attracted to, their attraction will fade no matter how much they want it to stay. Moving back to women, the simple truth is that if a woman thinks you're around her level, she won't like you as much as she would if she thought you were better than her. And if she thinks you're beneath her, she probably won't want you at all. Number 3, they're not only used to being approached by guys, but lots of them like it too. We as guys spend a lot of time agonizing over how to approach women. Will they like us? Will we offend them? Will we look creepy? Etc. But to a lot of us, the idea of approaching a woman is this unusual and terrifying thing that floods stress hormones throughout our bloodstreams. But you want to know something? Most women are used to being approached by guys and are actually quite comfortable with it. Most women are approached at least once a week, so after a few months or years, it becomes just another day at the office. Another thing you need to know is that as long as you're not being an obvious dickhead, the woman you approach is unlikely to see you as anything worse than a minor nuisance. And you know what? Once she gets rid of you, she'll usually forget you even existed within minutes. As guys, we spend days and sometimes weeks agonizing over failed approaches and beating ourselves up about them, but it's pointless for 2 reasons. Firstly, because the women in question have forgotten about us quite quickly if they didn't like us. And secondly, because there's an equally good chance that we made their days by approaching them. I've personally had conversations with quite a few women who've told me that they like being approached by men. In fact, 3 of the long-term girlfriends I've had always came home with a smile on their face whenever some guy approached them on the street. My ex would always be like,
5 guys stopped me on the street today.
And an ex of mine who went to live in Jamaica for a while kept telling me how much she loved the fact that every guy over there approached her to say how beautiful she was. Now, am I saying that all women want crap loads of male attention? No, I'm not, but I am saying that the narrative we've all been spoon-fed about women hating being approached by guys isn't true for all of them. Not by a long shot. But here's the problem as I see it. Yes, there are women who enjoy it, 35 to 65% in my opinion. However, those women won't speak up publicly. Any woman who stands tall in a public forum and admits to enjoying having men approach her in the street is going to be terrified of looking like a slut or a tease, so they keep that fact to themselves. Then, that leaves the women who genuinely do hate it free to proudly voice their opinions on social media and on the news like they're speaking for all women everywhere when they're only speaking for themselves. I did a challenge a while back called 100 Women in 50 Days where I approached 2 attractive women on the street every day. I couldn't tell you the amount of times one of them said to me,
I'm married, so I have to say no, but thank you so much.
Women don't all hate being approached. A lot of them enjoy it. Remember that. Number 4, women lose respect for you if you obey them too much. So as I've said, women generally want a strong and confident leader of a man. But the thing is that they can't be sure you're actually that guy without testing you. Most guys will pretend to be what they think a woman wants them to be at first, but it's hard to put on a front and eventually cracks start to show in their facades. This means that women will often test us when they meet us to make sure that we're who we're pretending to be so that they don't waste their time. But in fairness, these tests can and often do continue into the relationship. One of the ways that they do this is by demanding or making lots of requests of us, and I'll give you an example of what I mean. Let's say you're with a woman who's being unnecessarily demanding and saying things like,
Don't go out with your friends. I don't care how long this evening has been planned. Do what I want instead.
If you give in to ridiculous demands like this, demands that she herself knows are stupid, she'll lose respect for you as a man and be less attracted as a result. The simple truth is that most women want men who will be firm and put them in their place when they deserve it, because doing so reminds them that you're the strong and confident man who can protect them from the world. Number 5. They tend to raise their sons to become men they're not attracted to themselves. So an interesting little paradox about women is this. Most of us were raised by our mothers to always be nice and respectful to women. They basically did everything they could to make sure we'd be nothing but kind, courteous, inoffensive, and basically lovely to the opposite sex, while never once showing us how to be the attractive men that women crave. This then meant that we grew up treating women with absolute dignity, but never really being the strong and confident forces that they needed, and that meant that they didn't want us and basically became frustrated and miserable as a result. But there's a reason for why that happens, and it basically goes like this. Most women at some point have either had their hearts broken by some bad boy or seen it happen to their friends, and when they have a son, they absolutely hate the idea of him being one of those men for a few reasons. Firstly, they don't want to ever imagine their son having sex with lots of women, just like lots of men hate the idea of their daughters having sex with lots of men. And secondly, they just hate the idea of having a son who causes women pain, so they coach all of that potentiality right out of him. Number 6, women's attraction doesn't last forever. An interesting fact about women that I didn't learn for quite some time is that they're not attracted to us in the way that we are to them, and I'll explain what I mean. Let's say a man sees a pretty woman and is attracted to her. After that's been established, he always will be attracted to her until she's no longer pretty. Sure, they can fall in love with each other, at which point he'll continue to love her despite any massive weight gain she might experience, but his attraction will still diminish. Well, with women, their attraction for us is kind of like a bucket that's full of water but has a small hole in the bottom, causing little droplets to leak out. If you imagine that the water in the bucket represents the amount of attraction a woman has for you, and that there's an arbitrary horizontal line that runs halfway across that bucket and runs in a ring across it, then that line would indicate the amount of attraction she can lose before losing sexual interest in you. As a man, you need to keep that sexual attraction bucket topped up with water before it falls down past that arbitrary friend zone line. And as harsh as it sounds, it really is that simple. If you meet a woman and have a great night with her where you attract her by being witty, charming and funny, then you need to keep it up in order for her to continue to see you the same way in future. Sure, that water of attraction is only leaking out of her bucket in very, very, very small drips. And yes, any particular attractive thing that you do might be the equivalent of pouring a whole cup of water in said bucket, but the bucket is still diminishing and always will be. This is a huge part of why the men I mentioned earlier often lost their wives and girlfriends when they got fired and fell into slumps for months on end. The status their jobs afforded them in the eyes of their women were like cups of water constantly being poured into their sexual buckets, and once the jobs went away, the attraction eventually drained to nothing. I've literally seen it happen firsthand. It isn't enough to just attract a woman once. You have to keep her attracted to you on an ongoing basis. Whether she's your girlfriend, fuck buddy, or wife, you need to make sure that you don't get complacent or you'll spell the downfall of your relationship. Number 7. Most of them want to be dominated in the bedroom. This one was a real humdinger for me when I learnt it, but yes, most women want to be totally dominated in the bedroom, like completely owned in mind, body and soul. Sure, there's a time and a place for lovey-dovey soul sex, but it's not what most of them want most of the time. They basically want a man to treat them like a lady by day and impose his will on them like a savage and ravage them through an intense sexual experience that leaves them barely able to walk by night. And yes, I do accept the fact that not all women want this, but there's a minority that don't want to be dominated at all. That is true, but those minorities are just that, the minority, and greatly outnumbered by women who do want to be dominated to varying degrees. 50 Shades of Grey is basically a BDSM book about a young woman who is dominated by a wealthy businessman, and it was an international smash of a bestseller. But why? It's because it hits a lot of women's key attraction triggers, namely the inherent desire that most women have to be with a man of means who can dominate them properly, among others. But still, you don't just have to read 50 Shades of Grey, because 9 out of 10 female romance novels all feature a strong man of means who sexually dominates the heroine. In any event though, society at large coached me and millions of other men to be the exact opposite of that at all times. I couldn't tell you how many hours I wasted in bed with women who wanted me to take them, while I was so terrified about doing something offensive and offending them that I did absolutely nothing. Or the women I treated like delicate little snowflakes in bed and just bored to tears in the process. I know a fact that you have made the same mistakes too, and with that I say Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Ciao for now. If you like this video, comment the video, let me know what you think. Like the channel, subscribe to the channel, slam that notification bell, and yeah, bye bye, ciao for now.